They told you the Philippines had no history before Spain arrived. That before 1565, there was nothing. No kingdoms, no civilization, no culture worth recording. Just scattered islands, primitive tribes, people waiting to be saved. This is one of the most successful acts of historical erasure in human history. And it worked. Because today, more than 400 years after Spain burned the evidence, most Filipinos still don't know what was taken from them. This is the story of what existed before the burning. This is the story of a civilization that sailed oceans, wrote in its own script, traded in gold, and built kingdoms so powerful that China's emperor sent official delegations to pay respect. This is the story they tried to erase, and they almost succeeded. Close your eyes and go back. Not to 1565, when the Spanish arrived. Go back further. Go back to the year 900 AD. While Europe was crawling through the Dark Ages, while knights were dying in muddy fields for scraps of land, on the other side of the world, in the archipelago that would one day be called the Philippines, a civilization was thriving. The kingdom of Tondo controlled the mouth of the Pasig River. Its rulers bore the title of Lakan, a Sanskrit-derived word meaning Supreme Lord. Its merchants sailed to China, to India, to Borneo, to Java, to Arabia. Its warriors, a noble class called the Maharlika, wore gold, carried blades of Damascus steel, and commanded armies that rival powers feared. Maharlika. Say that word out loud. It comes from the Sanskrit Mahardika, meaning a person of wealth, knowledge, and ability. The word for freedom in Indonesian today, merdeka, comes from the same root. The Maharlika were not barbarians. They were the warrior nobility of one of the most sophisticated pre-colonial societies in all of Southeast Asia. And they had been building that society for centuries, before a single Spanish soldier ever set foot on Philippine soil. In 1989, a man was dredging sand from the banks of Laguna de Bay in the Philippines. His shovel hit something hard. He pulled it out of the mud. It was a small copper plate, barely the size of a sheet of paper. He had no idea what it was. He sold it at an antique market for almost nothing. It passed through several hands before it reached the National Museum of the Philippines. And when scholars finally decoded the text written across its surface, they realized what they were holding. The oldest written document ever found in the Philippines. Dated April 21st, 900 AD. The Laguna copperplate inscription. Written not in Spanish, not in Chinese, not in Arabic. Written in a sophisticated blend of Old Malay, Sanskrit, Old Javanese, and Old Tagalog, proving beyond any doubt that pre-colonial Filipinos were literate, connected to the wider world, and operating a fully functioning legal system. The document is a legal pardon. A military commander of the Kingdom of Tondo formally absolves a man named Namwaran and all his descendants from a debt of 926.4 grams of gold. That single detail tells you everything. These were not primitive people scraping in the dirt. These were people who measured gold to the decimal point. People who had courts, who had commanders, who had laws, enforced by written decree. And most Philippine schools still have not updated their textbooks. Here is something that will stop you cold. Before the Silk Road reached its peak, before Marco Polo made his famous journey, Filipino traders had already built one of the greatest maritime trade networks in human history. It was called the Maritime Jade Road. It ran for 3,000 years. From 2000 BC to 1000 AD, it stretched from Taiwan through the Philippines across to Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia. Filipino craftsmen mined jade from Taiwan, processed it in Luzon, and traded the finished pieces across all of Southeast Asia. 30,000 jade artifacts have been found in Batangas province alone, dated to 2,000 years before Christ. 30,000, from a culture that supposedly had no history. The Chinese knew. In 982 AD, almost 600 years before Spain arrived, merchants from the Philippines sailed to Gwangju and Chuanju carrying goods to trade. The history of Song, the official imperial record of China's Song dynasty, documents these Filipino traders by name. By 1373, the Kingdom of Tondo was sending official tribute missions to the court of the Ming Emperor in Beijing. The Yongle Emperor, one of the most powerful rulers in Chinese history, appointed a dedicated diplomat just to manage trade relations with the Philippines. Let that land for a moment. China's emperor gave the Philippines its own diplomat, because the Philippines mattered that much. The pre-colonial Filipinos had their own writing system. It was called Baybayin, an elegant script where each character represents an entire syllable. It was written on leaves, on bamboo, on bark. Spanish missionaries who arrived in the 16th century documented it with astonishment. One friar wrote that he had never met a Filipino, man or woman, who could not read and write in their own script. Think about that. In 16th century Spain, the colonizing power, the majority of the common population could not read at all. The people they came to civilize were more literate than they were. And the Filipinos had their own currency. Gold coins called piloncitos, small, precisely weighted pieces of gold stamped with their own writing. The Philippines had gold coins with their own script on them, centuries before the Spanish peso existed. And then Spain came. It did not arrive with curiosity. It did not arrive with respect. It arrived with guns, with crosses, and with a mission to transform everything it touched. And the missionaries understood something that many conquerors forget. To break a people permanently, you must break their memory first. So they burned the manuscripts. Filipino priests, the Babaylan, who held the sacred traditions of their communities, were labeled as witches and demons. Their texts were destroyed. Their knowledge was outlawed. The Baybayin script, still in use when Spain arrived, was suppressed, replaced by the Latin alphabet, by the Spanish language, by a new identity built entirely around the church. The datus who did not cooperate were removed. Those who converted and submitted were given honorary Spanish titles, reducing them from sovereign rulers to colonial administrators. And in 1543, before the conquest had even fully begun, the entire archipelago was renamed Las Islas Filipinas, the Islands of Philip, named after King Philip II of Spain, a king who never visited, a king who knew the islands only as a resource. The people who had lived there for 50,000 years, who had built kingdoms and sailed oceans and written in gold, were now named after a foreign king's son. But here is what they could not burn. They could not burn the blood. The descendants of the Maharlika warrior class are still here. The Baybayin script was never fully extinguished. Today it is carved into Philippine currency. It is tattooed on Filipino skin. It is being taught again in schools, slowly, as an act of reclamation. The balangay, the ancient Filipino sailing vessel, gave its name to the barangay, the basic unit of Filipino community that still exists today. The jade artifacts are still being excavated from Philippine soil. The Laguna copper plate sits in the National Museum in Manila, rewriting the story of a people. Every day that someone stands before it. You had a civilization. You had kingdoms. You had warriors and scholars and merchants and writers. Before Spain came, you had a name for yourselves that had nothing to do with a foreign king. But here is what still haunts historians. If the Philippines had all of this, if it had gold and trade and writing and kingdoms, why is so little of it left? The answer is not just the burning. The answer is also the climate. The Philippines is one of the most biologically aggressive environments on Earth. Tropical heat, constant humidity, typhoons, volcanic eruptions. The records that existed were fragile by nature, and the Spanish knew it. They didn't need to burn everything. The jungle would take care of most of it. They only needed to burn what was stone, what was copper, what was gold. And so the question that no historian can fully answer is this: how much was lost that we will never recover? How many kingdoms existed that left no copper plate behind? How many stories are gone forever? Not because they weren't told, but because the telling happened on leaves that rotted in the rain. We will never know. And that silence, that vast, deliberate silence, is perhaps the greatest crime of the colonial age. They renamed the islands. They burned the scripts. They dismantled the kingdoms. They taught generations of Filipino children that their history began with Spain. But it didn't. It began 50,000 years ago. It continued through jade roads and gold coins and copper plates and ocean voyages and warrior nobility and a writing system so elegant that a Spanish friar who hated everything it represented still stopped to admire its beauty. The Philippines had a history before Spain. It had a name before Philip. It had a soul before the burning. And no amount of fire, not in 1565, not in any century since, has been able to take that away. This has been Mr. L. Forgotten History. If this story reached you, share it, because the best way to honor what they tried to erase is to refuse to forget it.